Hi, welcome to the first of two Meet the Candidate nights. You will note that I'm here with Jennifer Beinstock-Cohan, candidate for Village Justice. And the reason we're doing this is the splitting up of the first two because of judicial ethics. Generally, there are restrictions for a candidate for justice. So we're doing this separately from the trustees. It's not as political. For obvious reasons, the judge has to be more temperate and not be political in any sense of the matter. I guess the first question is, why are you running for judge? That's what we would like to know.
Well, I've been an attorney for 25 years with a specialty in civil litigation. Most of my work has been in the trial courts of the state of New York. And I really enjoy the being in a courtroom and the litigation process. I have practiced in the federal courts as well. And I have always given back to my community in a variety of ways. And with my skill set as an attorney, the best way I can continue giving back to this community, to the village of Mamaroneck, is to be a village justice, the next village justice.
So you think you obviously have the courtroom experience. You wouldn't be going in cold into the village courtroom.
I am very comfortable in a courtroom, very, very comfortable in a courtroom. I've spent the past 25 years in a courtroom. And mostly in personal injury actions, civil litigation. I've also done small claims court arbitrations. So I think I have the experience necessary to be a village court justice as well.
Well, I think the residents might be interested in the process of running for justice, which is not too much different than, other than the ethical restrictions of judicial ethics. Why don't you describe the process of becoming a candidate and how you did it?
The process of becoming an independent candidate was very interesting and certainly an eye-opener for me as well. In order to be on an independent ticket in the village of Mamaroneck, you need 261 signatures of registered village of Mamaroneck voters. And I was able...
Across party lines, right?
Across party lines. They can be anything as long as they have not signed a petition previously. And so what I did was I went out and I got to meet a lot of people in the village of Mamaroneck, which was great. I loved it. I got to knock on doors and meet people and tell them that I was running for village justice and that I would like to run on an independent line. And the independent line is the Taxpayers Relief Party. And they were not required to vote for me, or they weren't promising to vote for me. They were just giving me an opportunity to be on the ballot as an independent candidate. And it was great because I got to meet so many people.
And as you went around talking to these people, I'm sure you told them what your connections are in the village of Mamaroneck, and why don't you give a little bit about your connections?
Well, I have lived in the village of Mamaroneck for 14 years. My husband and I have raised our two children here. My daughter is a sophomore at Rhinebeck High School. My son just graduated from the Windward School. While in the past 14 years that I've lived here, I've been very involved in community activities and community service and school community service. I ran the Bellows after-school clubs at Rhinebeck, and I have also at Shore Acres Point Corporation, where we live in Shore Acres. I have been on the board of directors. I was a member of the Principals Advisory Committee in the middle school, the Rhinebeck Middle School. I ran the back to school picnic.
Very busy.
Very busy. Sorry.
With all this, have you been able to do any pro bono work? As you know, volunteerism is very big in the village of Mamaroneck. So.
Absolutely, and volunteerism is very big with me and my family. And I have been a court-appointed special advocate for foster children
That's interesting.
for many years, and I take care of kids who are in foster care or in at risk of going into foster care. I communicate with the families, with the foster families, with the court, with the schools, and I advocate for those children the same way I would advocate for my own children, but I do it in a legal setting.
Obviously, you have a very broad experience in the courtroom. Is there anything you would bring as a new justice in the village of Mamaroneck, some improvements? Do you have any idea for improvements to make it user-friendly?
The Village of Mamaroneck Court is one of the busiest courts in
It is.
Westchester County. I don't
think
know
it's
if you
number
know
8,
that.
right? No, it's very busy,
And
unfortunately.
Right. It's a very busy court with criminal cases, with civil cases, and with parking violations. If we can, and I would recommend to the Board of Trustees, if we can set up a separate parking violations bureau, which would remove the parking tickets and parking violations out from the congested court calendar, that would allow people who are just in the courtroom for parking violations to
Which people
go.
get aggravated at too.
If someone is called for a 9:30 parking violation and they are still sitting there at 3 o'clock and haven't had their ticket heard
They're
yet,
not a happy camper.
not a
Right.
happy camper. So
Good
I
idea.
would like to make those non-happy campers happy campers by setting up a parking violations bureau.
As happy as could be with a ticket, right?
Exactly. Well, they would have an opportunity to have it heard. They're not there just to pay it. They're there to maybe fight
It's
it.
a great idea, and you certainly have a direct input to the Board of Trustees. That's
Thank you.
actually a good idea. We'll have to investigate that. Hi, welcome to Friendly Village of Mamaroneck. This is the second Meet the Candidates show. I would note that while we're a little crowded here, what you are looking at, I believe, is the next Board of Trustees in the Village of Mamaroneck. It is very important that the people know, as a continuance of our last show, we did a introductory to the general character and the background of the candidates. And before we get into nitty-gritty, which we promised, just a quick review and a recap. Mike, why don't you give a quick recap of yourself and why you're running?
Thank you. In 1972, I started teaching at Mamaroneck Avenue School. And then I fell in love with the village, and my pride for the village of Mamaroneck just festered and fostered right then and there. And anyone who knows me knows I'm an independent thinker. And for 40 years, I've been there. I've done that. Every fabric of this village, recreation, education,
Trustee.
political, and also religion, okay? I've been part of it. But thanks to you and our deputy mayor, that spark is back. That spark is back. I want to serve this village again with George and Dennis and take on the challenges of parking, taxes, and flooding. And also, what we've learned, our campaigning, is to listen to the people.
Amen.
It's all the residents, and that's what we're getting every night. Listen to the people.
Right.
Thank you.
Dennis?
Well, once again, I'm a lifelong resident of the village. Served on many boards, committees, and commissions. I just love this village, as I've stated previously. I raised my children here. I just want to serve this board because I think that what Norman and Lou have done the past few years have done a whole lot to help get us through a lot of tough times, even with a lot of negativity that's been thrust upon them. They seem to have done a tremendous job, and that's why I want to be here, and that's why I want to serve
And
my
we're alive
village.
and well, too.
You certainly are. You've come out unscathed.
Ducking.
So far.
It's not over yet. I'm also a lifelong resident. I worked on Mamaroneck Avenue during my school years, and then ultimately I lived out my career at the Westchester Joint Waterworks. I was there for 38 years, and I wanted to join this team because each brings a separate expertise to the board, but yet we all have a common goal. And the clincher was working for Norman and Louie. They have set this village in the correct direction. It reminds me of my youth on Mamaroneck Avenue, and I cherish being a resident in the village of Mamaroneck.
Great. Now, as promised, let's get to the nitty-gritty. The people that we're asking for consideration want to know pretty much what our positions are. And quite honestly, there is a difference in philosophy. and positions on the most important issues, which to me are parking, flood mitigation, taxes, revenue, and budget. And of course, the all-important aspect, volunteers in the Village of Mamaroneck, which is the key, because we have a very diverse community and it's successful. Not so much Louis and I will take some credit, but the majority of the credit goes to the volunteers. So let's hit parking first. Louis, why don't you give a little synopsis of the parking structures in the village?
Oh, parking, yeah, that's a big thing. In the village, when Norm and I were campaigning in 2009, we reached out to most of the residents and to the store owners and the merchants. And we said, what issues, if we get elected, and when we get elected, would you like us to address for you? And the biggest thing was parking. And it has manifested over the years. And so Norman sat down last year and he is, with his expertise, he got a committee together, the ad hoc committee for parking. And let's see what we can do. And we stated from day one that our objective, our goal was for this parking, it will not cost the village residents of Mamaroneck any money.
All right.
And we said it from day one. And, the opponents talk about transparency, and we were transparent on day one. And this past board meeting, a couple of the opponents came up and saying, you really should rethink this. It's going to cost the taxpayers a lot of money. Like saying, we were transparent over this, and we said it from day one. So where they get these ideas, maybe they're just not up to snuff on the thing. But if they'd like to sit down with me and Norman, we can fill them in on, give them the insight of what's going on.
That's public information. How do you guys
Now,
feel
now
about
I
jump in?
heard, because I wasn't familiar with the committee, the ad hoc
Right.
committee you guys have created. When I heard those names, and it was Janet DeMasi and Tannenbaum and Ennis and Mr. Goldberg, I said, you got to be kidding me. Those are 4 individuals that love this village as much as we do.
Right.
So there's no hidden agenda here. There's nothing at all.
That committee is
they mean
broad-based.
it.
There are actually
Yeah.
10 people on that committee.
I don't know.
that
I
represent
apologize
business.
the other
Right.
6, but
That's
the 4
okay.
I heard last night, those 4 is fine that I've been around, as fine as they get.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Having worked on the avenue during my school years, I worked at Mercurio's Deli. He wouldn't let us park at the in front of the store. He used to say you have to walk to work, and I couldn't understand that, but in later years I did, because he
Got in shape.
he drilled it into me, and he said that's for shoppers, and we have to turn over those spaces so that we can grow as a village, as a store. And like I say, in later years, I did get it.
And with these parking structures that are being looked at, it's a revenue bearing for the village also to help
Absolutely.
offset the tax base. So not only is it convenience for parking,
So
it's
when-
twofold.
We owe
Yeah.
it to the village of Mamaroneck.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have to allow the village the stability and to allow it to grow.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that the objections raised by our opponents at the last Board of Trustees meeting just showed that they're have a lack of understanding of what's happening and how to get to it. By stating the fact that, or by stating that it would be costing the village an enormous amount of money, they obviously have no idea of how this is to be approached. And the way Norman has said, with a contractor comes in, gives us a price, runs the structure, shares with the village, and then in a matter of time, it's turned over completely to the village. It's completely a win-win situation
That's right, it's
for us.
village-owned property. And the ultimate irony is that I was invited to go to the announcement by County Executive Astorino at Playland, and I can tell you that's on a smaller level. We're doing with the parking what they're doing on a much larger level in Playland. It's a public-private enterprise where the taxpayers of Westchester County, which we are among, are going to benefit directly because they're going to have income. The county is not going to be responsible for it. And over a period of years, they'll pay off the $30 million of $35 million in bonds, and it'll be a great place and open space for the residents of Westchester County. And quite frankly, that's exactly what we're doing in the Village of Mamaroneck. The Village of Mamaroneck is #1, and we need public-private enterprise to do this. And again, as I repeat what Dennis said, this purpose is conceptual right now. We are going out and we're asking the ad hoc committee, who is made up of business, real estate, residents, and so on, and we're seeking if there is in fact interest on this, and do we move forward. And with that, I think we should move, because we are time constrained here, to hit and let the people know one of the most important things in the Village of Mamaroneck is flood mitigation.
Without a doubt.
And I believe there is, again, a big difference between our opponents and what we represent. In the budget process, which we'll get to later, there were some complaints about how we are approaching this. But I can tell you that Lou and I started something for the first time where before it's totally restricted because the excuse was, oh, you can't do anything because the Army Corps of Engineers won't let you. The first meeting we had, the Army Corps of Engineers, I asked, can we do anything that will stop it? They said nothing. We've dredged and removed silt for the last 2 years, and as a matter of fact, next week they're going to start it again.
Oh, good.
I know you guys, you live in a flood zone
Yeah.
area.
Right.
With the amount of time you've here, I know you're involved and you're aware of the flood mitigation. Why don't you give some of your thoughts?
Well, I deal with it constantly in my function as a code enforcement officer in the village of Scarsdale, working in the engineering department, and we see flooding going on in multi-million-dollar houses. But I think that the plan that's in place now allows for the residents, as indicated, to get some potential grants
Right.
of between 25 and 90%.
wonderful.
Now, some people will be able to afford to raise their homes, and some people will not. But I think that also with the
We just changed that, as a matter
stipulations,
of fact,
with
right?
the
Yeah.
legislation that you just had changed, the words cumulative and substantial
Right.
have been removed. That's going to help some people that actually can't afford to raise their homes to stay in our village.
Good point.
And this is what
That's
we
the
need. These
key,
are the
help them
people we
stay here.
need, because that
Yeah.
is part of our diversity,
Good
point.
and keeping these people here
And
is
we're-
what we want to do. They're all our neighbors.
Yeah, and we're being proactive.
Right.
And when
Absolutely.
Dennis and George were walking down there, you could see what some of those poor, about
Yeah.
souls had to go through. 8 feet of water. And it's
Yeah.
just, and they don't want to hear Army Corps of Engineers anymore. They
Right.
want action.
What is
And
the
that's
village
what-
going to do? Forget the
Exactly.
Army
Right,
That's
that's
what
right.
they want.
That's
And they don't want to leave. They had tears in their eyes. And
The Army Corps spent $18 million with the last 3 studies. I mean, what are we going to do?
yeah.
If Mamaroneck is our garden, we have to cultivate it and address all the problems. It has to be fair and equitable for all. It's if you think that you don't get flooded and it doesn't affect you, you're really wrong.
Exactly.
Because our infrastructure is compromised at times, and the roadways, and there's so many things that it addresses, the dumping, fees for that. So we all have to take a look at it and work together as a team. It's not a matter of Democrat, Republican, or any specific individual. We have to work as a team. And the public, we have to listen and hear what they're saying. And we will. As this team, we will step forward, we will work hard for you, and we will make Mamaroneck number 1.
You're right. Floodwater doesn't know politics.
It does no parties, that's right. It has no parties
Yeah.
at all. And,
Just with the flooding is, we talked about the volunteers and the committees. First time in a long time, our flood hazardous mitigation plan has been in place, Norman, right?
Right.
And with the help of the experts and the volunteers we had in the village and the village manager and the village personnel, we got this plan in place now, which makes us eligible for grants for the homeowners who get flooded, for raising of homes, federal grants, numerous things where grants for 25 to 90%. So, some people were talking about, well, why'd you change the plan? People can get $30,000 to raise their homes. They won't be able to raise a garage for $30,000.
They wouldn't be here.
They wouldn't be
30,000.
here.
Right.
So they're not getting a full
That was an
read on the
elitist position as
on
far
the
as
whole
I'm
project.
concerned, right?
well, the opposition to that came from our opposition, the way I
Right.
saw it. So
Yeah.
That's absolutely correct.
That's right.
As a matter of fact, there were 2 plans that were languishing for a long time that didn't allow the village to go after the federal funds for the benefit and allow the residents to do it, which is the all hazard mitigation plan. And talking about volunteers, which we'll get to later, I will honestly note that, well, I said before, there is no politics in flooding. One of the people that actually helped lead and helped write the all hazard mitigation plan and a comprehensive plan is Paul Ryan, Tony Ryan's husband, who obviously is a Democrat. He was a Democratic supervisor in the town of Mamaroneck. But again, he didn't do it because he's a Democrat. He did it
was
because
best
we
for
asked
the
him to be
village.
on the board.
Right.
He's on the flood mitigation committee. That's exactly what this village
Yeah,
needs. You don't, as far as I'm concerned, you should get rid of the local politics and the local parties.
I
And
agree.
like the
True.
5 of us
I agree.
will have individual opinions and so on, but we have one goal in mind: what's best for the village of Mamaroneck. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I know we're coming up on time. I want to move to taxes, revenue, and budget process. This will definitely, illustrate the difference between our slate and our opponent's slate. It's a simple philosophy. Lou and I know one basic truth, and that is the taxpayers in the village of Mamaroneck know better how to spend their own money than the village of Mamaroneck does. And the first year that Lou and I were in, when we had the majority, the tax increase was 0.35%. After we lost the majority, went back to old politics as far as I'm concerned with individual agendas, and it jumped up to 4%, 5%. Even with the 2% tax cap, the tax levy in the village of Mamaroneck will be subject to increases if you don't start running this village in a business-like manner. And we'll leave that at that. What do you guys?
Well,
I know you
I
guys
think
know the budget.
if because we know that if they had followed the same plan that you had when you had the 0.35%, it would have been something like 1.4% or
Right.
something instead of
That's correct.
4%. So I think that makes a big difference. And people are hurting. People are hurting. Taxes have to be held at a minimum, and while maintaining, of course, the services that we're used
Absolutely.
to. Again, it's the village of Mamaroneck. We're all neighbors. Let's keep us together.
I think
That's
I'm sorry.
perfect how that parking would tie in, because whatever revenue that the village receives from the parking will help offset the taxes. So it's a double it's a double win-win for us,
Right.
where we're getting
And
parking.
70% of
and
the
we're
people that
getting
use the
money.
parking do not live in the village of
That's right,
Mamaroneck.
exactly right.
So it's outside money.
And what you have to understand too is some of the opponents that are running, they have a different philosophy about budget, because they're in private sectors. Private and public, I've learned, since I've been in 2009, you learn something new every day, and things would happen in
Exactly.
private and public are completely different. There's no boundaries, and there's nothing that's alike. It's private and it's public, and that's the bottom line.
Right.
And the budget itself is what for the village? 30 million?
About 30 million, a little
Yeah.
over 30 million, right.
And what do we have?
The majority of it is
flexibility,
mandated and
five-
so on. You
yeah.
have some,
About
you have
5
some
million.
leeway, but
Yeah.
at the most.
So
Most
you're
of
locked
it's
in.
benefits and
Yeah.
salaries and
Which
pension
makes the
costs.
village what it is. So
Yeah.
I said
Right.
it's
But also, again,
Yeah.
to demonstrate the difference in philosophy, which we've discussed, and that is at the last budget process, and I know one of our opponents, who's the chairman of the budget committee, I believe is making statements and public statements in the media and so on, that flies, as Louis said, in the realistic approach that you have to take when you're doing a budget in the village of Mamaroneck, line by line. And that is going to be our responsibility. It's the mayor and board of trustees that sits down, discusses with the department heads, after the village manager and the clerk treasurer gets a mandate from us of what we want to do, and we tell them, look, we're looking for no more than a 2% tax cap, and so on, and then we come and we interview the department heads and so
Yes,
on.
yeah.
But the statement is from our opponents, they want to cut the police department by 30%.
That
have
would be
any idea what that
devastating.
would do?
That would be
Absolutely
devastating.
not.
Do you realize what goes on in the
3 out of
village of
10,
Mamaroneck?
no.
We would. I'm sorry, George. But we would have lose so much by cutting the department, because it was going to cost us a lot more in overtime for the
Absolutely.
existing, the rest of the
Exactly.
Whatever you
department.
save, it costs you no overtime.
And then we have the parades that we have, the Fireman's Parade, the Spooktacular, Mamaroneck Shares. Those are wonderful events. And without the police presence there, which has been fantastic,
You
or
even
the
close
bicycle
Mamaroneck Avenue
police,
down.
you wouldn't be able to.
Bicycle
you wouldn't be
cops.
able to.
Right.
Shooting it
Officers
out,
that
safety
walk
in the
the
You wouldn't
street.
have a bicycle.
That's one of the
absolutely
best
correct.
things that
You'd cut
happened.
it out.
And we were the
It's
first
absolutely
communities to have the
Perfect-
bicycle
A
cop.
perfect example with the police department years ago, we've never had a domestic violence officer, in the village. And, there was a need that a study came out, and we put an individual there, and that person is one of the most busiest persons in the police department at this time. Our detective bureau is phenomenal, the job that they're doing and the amount of workload that they have. And there is still, it's not up to what was years ago. There has been some cuts in the police department already. But you can't turn around and compare a village of 5.3 square miles to a city like City of Rye, let's take for example,
Yeah.
where it's a different
point.
mix-up, it's a different philosophy. It's, you see your police spotters. Everything's completely
And
different.
talking
There's no
about,
comparison.
as Dennis just noted, talking about Mamaroneck Shares disappearing, Spooktacular disappearing, perhaps even a Fireman's Parade, the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And this is the key that we lead into with volunteers. We only have a couple of minutes left to wrap it up. I think the most important thing is what Lou and I helped lead is to encourage the volunteer groups, which we've done. The volunteer groups created St. Patrick's Day Parade, Mamaroneck Shares, and so on.
Spectacular.
Harbor Island Conservancy, just look down what they've done here. It's absolutely unbelievable.
It's alive.
Well, as
It's
we
thriving.
talked about that,
It's
the
alive.
volunteers, especially the volunteer fire department, which, as
Exactly.
we indicated, was one of the
Exactly.
best. But also the volunteers that we have on our boards and committees and commissions that put in a lot of time, free of charge to the village, and they're doing a fantastic job. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that one of our opponents said they were going to appoint intelligent people or smart people. I just don't see that we don't have intelligent and smart
Already
people
have
on the
them.
boards
We
now.
have them.
We've been in existence since
Phenomenal
1895.
volunteers.
And one thing with the volunteers, I'll finish quickly, is if there happens to be an opening on a board, within a day or two, word is out there, it's on the website, well, we get flooded with resumes. People are biting at the bit to help the
And not only
village.
that,
great.
you look at the makeup, because when we made appointments,
Right.
we never looked at someone's party. I can't tell you who's a Democrat or Republican.
No.
The only thing I can tell you is that they're interested in the village of Mamaroneck.
Right,
And
and they have the
that's
right
exactly
what
One
it
more
is.
thing to talk.
Yeah, there's one other thing that we're talking about volunteers. The village also must be very cognizant that there are people with their own agendas in this village that, as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, have absolutely no concept what is best for the village.
Well, no
of Mamaroneck.
facts either.
Under their own. I received this piece of garbage that was sent to me by 20 people in the village of Mamaroneck, and this was sent out allegedly by an alleged leader of a local neighborhood association. And they're talking about Hampshire Country Club. Hampshire Country Club was bought and purchased, and I can tell you that I worked with Valerie O'Keefe and with the village of Mamaroneck with the sole purpose of keeping that property as open space. There is a conceptual idea that's now being considered by the developers, and that is to keep 90 to 97% of that property open. But this statement goes out and says there are secret meetings going on, nothing. It's been totally open, and I can tell you that anybody in this village will be aware of what it goes, because very simply, you can throw that away. Any project in the village of Mamaroneck first has to go to the engineering department,
Yeah.
planning board, HCZM.
Yeah.
So I
Chronological.
can guarantee you,
Oh, yeah.
whatever discussion is and whatever it ends up, it will be open. And as Louis and I started, with the first thing we did was open up the meetings where you were not allowed to talk from my predecessor to everyone comes to talk, including the people that complain the most, they come talk the most, that we will guarantee you this will remain the best and open village in the village of Mamaroneck, and you guys are going to help us do that.
Of course, and all of these meetings, as everyone knows, are public. They're open to the
Right.
public. Anyone can
TV.
come. All 18,000 residents can come and speak their piece.
All right,
And
so
we would love to hear it.
As we're wrapping up, I just let you know, this here is a picture of the ballot where you see the orange. You note this is where you can go and vote for our candidates on line B, C, and E. And we are endorsed by the Republican, the Conservative, Independents, and the Taxpayers Relief Party. So let's just wrap it up with that. And remember, everybody on November 6th, come out and vote for this next Board of Trustees. Thank you very much. George?
Thank you.
I'd just like to say our slate is to keep Mamaroneck first. I'm a bit spoiled because I grew up in Mamaroneck and I have the same quality of life today, and I want to continue that and afford the new upcoming generation the same quality of life.
Yeah,
Yes.
we just want to serve my village more, or additionally, continually. To again, keep Mamaroneck first. That's our theme, and that's what we really want to do. We just want to keep Mamaroneck first. We love it.
Mike?
Likewise.
I
Likewise.
would-
You know where I'm coming
If
from.
I just have a minute, I would just
Oh.
like to say one other thing that's different than the opponents that are running this year. These three gentlemen sitting right here were not handpicked,
Right.
as stated previously by the past chairman of the other
Okay.
party and stuff. But
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have to cut you
Okay.
off and wrap it up. Thank you very much, and thank LMC-TV again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
sit here and smile.